All the stories in this video have been picked from Reddit and have been enhanced for more dramatic effect. The story content and the respective details are the responsibility of the original poster. Welcome, all you disciples of revenge, to another installment of stories from our pro-revenge. Story 1. Title: A Cowardly Act of Injustice. By User Paver. I was relaxing on my couch, savoring the last remnants of the weekend, when a phone call shattered the tranquility. It was a call that would unveil a bizarre and disturbing chain of events, testing my sense of justice and fairness. My small restaurant was a microcosm of the diverse expat workforce in this country. I employed a motley crew of foreigners, including servers, cleaners, kitchen staff, and drivers. They were all brought here by sponsorship from their employers, and I had a handful of them on my payroll. One of my servers, a kind and hard-working young woman named Janice, was caught in a compromising situation at a local restaurant. She and her companion were fully clothed, but the man she was with had his junk out. He happened to work at a nearby restaurant, making this story even more puzzling. Janice and her companion were picked up by the police, but after a stern warning and a signed pledge to behave better, they were both set free. Something about this incident nagged at me. How did the police arrive at the scene so swiftly? It was a restaurant, after all, and you'd think the restaurant staff would have noticed first. I decided to investigate. I called the restaurant in question, and to my surprise, the staff claimed they hadn't even noticed the commotion. They had never encountered such a situation before, and the police had stormed in without any prior calls or disturbances. The pieces of this strange puzzle didn't add up. Someone must have seen Janice and her companion and decided to call the police directly. But who? I approached Janice, and she told me that it was likely Sammy, one of our drivers, who had dropped her off at the restaurant that day. According to her, he had a thing for her and had once attempted to force himself on her. Shockingly, she hadn't reported the incident to me or any of the managers. She didn't want anyone to lose their job over it and preferred to keep her distance from the authorities. She refused to press charges, which left me fuming. I called Sammy into my office and confronted him about the incident. He proudly admitted to calling the police, claiming that he had done it because Janice was a troublemaker woman and he believed the man she was with was married, which went against his moral code. I was disgusted by his cowardly act of injustice. Sammy had betrayed Janice's trust, violated her privacy, and subjected her to public humiliation. He had also shown a complete disregard for the company's policies and procedures. Why didn't you contact your manager or me instead of calling the police immediately? I demanded. Why make this my problem and the company's problem? Sammy was left speechless, head down in shame. I didn't mince words. I know what you did, Sammy. Janice just told me everything. I'm disgusted by your actions, and I'm sorry that we ever hired you. He meekly mumbled that he had only tried once, but his excuse fell on deaf ears. I promptly fired him, handed him a one-way ticket home, and watched him leave the premises. But my sense of justice didn't end there. I still had Sammy's house phone number from when we first hired him. I decided to wait until he was on the plane and then dialed the number. To my delight, his wife answered. "Hello, Mrs. Sammy," I said, unable to contain my anger. "I'm your husband's former employer. I regret to inform you that I had to fire him a few hours ago because he attempted to assault a fellow employee half his age. I'm truly sorry." With that, I hung up, leaving her gasping in shock. I knew that my call would be a bombshell for Sammy's wife, but I felt it was my duty to inform her of his true character. She deserved to know what kind of man she was married to. In the end, justice was served. Sammy was fired and his wife was made aware of his misdeeds. However, Janice remained traumatized by the experience. She had to endure the trauma of being sexually harassed, the public humiliation of being arrested, and the emotional pain of being betrayed by a colleague. I hope that Janice was able to find healing and support in the aftermath of this ordeal. She deserves so much better. Story 2. Title, From Victim to Victor, How I Got My Toxic Manager Fired. By User Traveling ABC. I was at the lowest point in my professional life. My husband and I had both been laid off the previous year, and the desperation to find a new job was consuming. But then, a glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon in the form of a job offer. It wasn't quite what I had been doing before, but the promise lay in the manager and the team, and that part never changed. That manager was Gary, who, unfortunately, had his hands full and decided to offload me to another manager, Jane. From the moment I met Jane, I knew I was in for a rough ride. She was micromanaging, demanding, and cruel. She made comments about my weight, race, and personal life, and she seemed to take pleasure in making me miserable. I tried to stick it out, but eventually, I reached my breaking point. Jane had yelled at me over something trivial, while I was already dealing with a family tragedy. I confided in Gary about the situation, and to my relief, he understood. He offered to move me to a different team under his management, but the change didn't bring the peace I had hoped for. Jane continued to harass me from afar, and Gary seemed powerless to stop her. After 2 months, I had had enough. I handed in my resignation with a list of Jane's offensive comments attached and CC'd everyone. Gary offered accommodations to keep me, but the only way I would stay was if Jane left, and he lacked the authority to make that happen. Despite multiple HR complaints from several people, Jane's manager in another country did nothing. So I left, loudly and without shame, sharing exactly why I was departing. The next 3 months were tough. We often ate slices of bread to make ends meet, juggling mortgage payments and emergency expenses. Even when my husband found a job, we were still catching up on bills. I spent months applying for numerous jobs every day, sometimes as many as 20. Then, last month, a ray of hope appeared. An old colleague from a former company was joining the firm I had left. I reached out to him with congratulations and offered insights on the new place. That conversation led to an offer to join his team as chief of staff, which I gladly accepted. When I returned to the company, I was stunned to see Jane's face during our first all-hands call. She looked like she had seen a ghost. The new big shot introduced me as his chief of staff, and I now sat 2 levels above her. Within the 3 months I was absent, the other half of her team had left, and Gary was genuinely happy for me. Jane, on the other hand, was not happy. She sent a nasty email to the big shot, questioning my qualifications, claiming I tried to get her fired, and even suggesting I lied to get ahead. Big Shot forwarded me her email, seeking an explanation. I was nervous but excited. What Jane didn't know was that I had been a director at the Big Shot's competitor company, already a level above her. The 2-level leap wasn't a big deal, and I had worked with him for 5 years. After an hour-long call, I convinced the Big Shot that Jane was detrimental to the company culture and a generally unpleasant person. With evidence from Gary, my previous resignation letter, and a few other damning emails from Jane's recent staff, Big Shot took action and fired her on a Friday. It was a triumphant moment, the culmination of a long and challenging journey. I had finally gotten my toxic manager fired. Story 3. Title, The Case of the Super Bowl Tickets, A Revenge Story. By User Bransonen. As a fervent 49ers fan, I live and breathe the game, the kind who thrives on all-day tailgates in the parking lot. A few years back, our beloved 49ers made it to the Super Bowl, and that was when the unexpected drama began. At that time, I was working at a consulting firm, managing several client accounts. Among them, there was one client who knew my passion for the Niners. We struck up a great friendship, often enjoying drinks and dinners after our meetings. He had a pair of coveted company seats for the big game and wanted to gift them to me as a token of appreciation. However, he entrusted this gift to the partner on the account, whom I shall henceforth refer to as Dickhead Partner. Dickhead Partner was a notorious jerk, known for his arrogance and self-centeredness. I had a sinking feeling that he would never give me the tickets, but I held out hope. The Super Bowl came and went, but there was no game day thrill for me. To my surprise, during one of our post-game meetups, my client innocently asked, "Why didn't you go to the game?" "I heard someone else was in your seats." Puzzled, I replied, "What game?" To which he dropped the bombshell, "The Super Bowl." I was furious. Dickhead Partner had stolen my tickets. I confronted him, but he lied to my face, claiming that he had lost them. I knew he was lying, but I couldn't prove it. My client was also furious. He couldn't believe that Dickhead Partner had betrayed his trust. He decided to take matters into his own hands. A few days later, the client summoned me and Dickhead Partner to a meeting at his office. He had orchestrated a brilliantly awkward scenario to expose Dickhead Partner. As we entered the conference room, it seemed like a regular meeting, but there was a woman we didn't recognize, introduced as Stephanie such and such, a VP from another department. She casually said, "Hey, OP, you guys must already know her from the Super Bowl." With a faint expression, I replied, "Sorry, client, I wasn't there." "Are you thinking of someone else?" This moment had Dickhead Partner squirming, desperately searching for an excuse. Stephanie chimed in, "No, so-and-so, from other company, were in the other seats. By the way, I was wondering why we gave company seats to those guys. Is there a project we're working with them on that I don't know about?" It was obvious that there was no such project. Dickhead Partner stammered, and the client didn't hold back. He asked, "Dickhead Partner, I give you those tickets for, OP?" Stammering again, Dickhead Partner looked at me, hoping for support. But I played dumb, saying, what are you talking about?" "Client, you gave me tickets to the Super Bowl." The client's voice grew louder. "Dickhead Partner, those tickets were a personal thank you gift from me to OP. Did you give them away to someone else?" Pause. Was it another client? Dickhead Partner mumbled something about a mix-up in the office, turning bright red. At that point, the client declared the meeting over and took me out for lunch, making sure Dickhead Partner was excluded. On our way to the restaurant, I received a desperate text from Dickhead Partner asking me to cover for the firm. I replied that he had to pay the consequences for his actions. The client had some demands: invoices for the resale value of the Super Bowl tickets, immediate payment, a direct apology, a written apology to the company, and a commitment to deal only with me or another partner from our firm. Dickhead Partner had no choice but to comply. He paid back the invoices from his salary and wrote a groveling apology to the client and the company. This whole incident cast a long shadow over my time at the firm, and since Dickhead Partner wasn't going anywhere, I decided to leave for a better position a few months later. The client eventually terminated their relationship with the firm a year later, and, coincidentally, he now works with a friend of mine at a competing firm. I still can't get over missing the Super Bowl, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed for the Niners to make it back this year so I can finally experience it in person. Go Niners! Story 4. Title: The Price of Greed, A Trucker's Tale. By user Lucario_Stormblade. Under the gentle glow of the moon, a drama unfolded that would have made a Hollywood screenwriter jealous. I, your narrator, am a professional trucker navigating the vast expanse of American highways. On this particular night, I had a late-night delivery, so I secured a reserved parking spot at a truck stop. I explained my situation to the manager on duty, and she assured me that she would mark my spot as sold when I left. With that, I embarked on my delivery journey. Hours passed, and I returned to the truck stop at 2:30 a.m., exhausted from the long day. To my disbelief, all the reserved parking spots were occupied. Panic surged through me as I immediately contacted the manager. An employee was dispatched to investigate, and the culprit was quickly identified. A trucker with a bright orange trailer was illegally occupying one of the reserved spots. The drama began as the employee knocked on the driver's door. The driver, in a drunken stupor, reacted with defiance and threats. The employee, determined to uphold the rules, refused to back down. I watched the unfolding spectacle from my vantage point at the fuel island. The situation escalated, and the employee decided to call the police. When the police arrived, they quickly discovered that the driver was in violation of several company policies, including possessing alcohol and illegal drugs in the cab of his truck. The driver was arrested, his truck was towed, and he was fired from his job. Justice had been served. Hey, thank you for joining me on this journey through the best and most intriguing Reddit threads. If you enjoyed these stories as much as I did, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more captivating content. And don't forget to ring that notification bell to stay up to date with my latest script readings. Remember, the internet is a treasure trove of fascinating tales, and I'll keep unearthing them just for you. Until next time, I'm your Reddit script storyteller, signing off.